Hey, Imran Nanlawala, how you been, brother?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Hey, good, good. Hey, I know you've been a man of various talents, from your editing skills to your talking skills to your interview skills to, working at the university level and doing quite a bit of different things. But one thing I know you have a passion for is sports.
Yes.
Especially basketball.
Right.
I know you're a big San Antonio Spurs fan and you like to analyze basketball and teams. But I know you you were coaching on the side, to some kids in the community, but then you also took a bigger step last year. You decided to work with a school in Texas.
Yeah.
What was the school's name?
The team name was Springcreek, the Springcreek Spartans, and the school's name was Springcreek Academy. I did not work directly for the school. I worked with the team directly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And now that you've worked with the team, I know like this year previously they won the state championship. I know this year they won Texas is a big state now, so for anyone who doesn't understand.
Yeah.
So for winning the region, that's quite a bit of teams.
Yep.
But they were the regional champs.
Yep.
And
Southwest
region,
Yep.
Which is huge. And that's like a really big metropolitan area too. So guys, for anyone who does not know, when we say Southwest, that's like Dallas.
It's more than just that immediate area.
But just the area where there's quite population is there. So they went there, won their region, and they went on to play for the state. But this year, they didn't get to win the state, but had that. So I know you had that experience with them. So hey, for a lot of us, we always want to reach that, right? As coaches, or as kids who may have kids who might play. What did you, in your experience being with them and being at sports at various levels, when you playing yourself to now coaching, what did you notice which was very important? Like what were 3 to 4 cultural things that you saw at that school that you felt like, hey, this is something I learned that we could put that as coaches or individuals who maybe work with other kids?
I would say first, before we even talk about the team culture, the school culture, the culture amongst the coaches that were there, it's sometimes we have things that interest us or we're intrigued about, but we don't pursue them, right? And we'll make a whole bunch of excuses. I don't have enough knowledge, or I've never done this before, or what are people going to think? So in this one case, I would say that the interest has been there for the first time I coached was here actually where I'm in right now, Schiller Park. The recreation department had 6th through 8th grade teams. Mm-hmm. So when I was 18, I was able to be an assistant coach with my friend David, who actually lives 2 houses down. And we coached 6th to 8th graders. And that's where you kind of say okay, I enjoy this, right? And we did it for one more season after that. And then the interest was always there, right? Looking at the game at a different level. But then you're like, how do I get involved in this? How do I start? So it's just an interest. You find yourself watching games, watching hundreds of hours of Sports Center clips or Bleacher Report clips, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But then that next step. So I would say firstly is sometimes you just have to put yourself out there, right? So when I moved to Texas, a good friend of mine, Abdullah, and we were talking, saying we should get into coaching. We got some of the community kids together. We started coaching. Right. Then for me, I'm enjoying this, right? I'm bringing my camera. I'm recording. I'm going home. Even though you're volunteering, you're not getting paid for this. Then you're breaking down footage. Then you're almost doing a scouting report for your team, even though it's not very serious. So the passion comes out. Then you start noticing that look, this is something I'm very interested in, and it actually makes, if this was work, it's not like work. It's like having fun, but you're getting paid to do it. So then I got to meet these individuals at Spring Creek, and we just bounced some ideas off of one another. I invited the coach over to interview him for the Walaway. And then we had dinner, and then we just started speaking. He had some questions. I was able to provide, I'm hoping, some advice, some strategy. Nice. And then similarly, I had basketball questions, and he was able to provide a lot of insight and a lot of strategy about that. Then some players played on our team, and then we got to know each other more seriously. So from that point, it's kind of where, people need to learn about you, right, before they can take a risk or gamble on you, right? So the more opportunities you give them to learn who you are, how you get down. Are you someone that they can call and you're there, at the drop of a dime? Are you someone who's able to provide value as opposed to just taking value? So rapport is built, and then I'm starting to go into their field house, where the private facility where they practice, and then you start learning, there's a culture. So number one, you asked about 4 or 5 takeaways. One of the things that I learned right away is culture. And you hear this a lot, right? Yeah, you got to establish culture from day one. But they take culture very seriously, right? And there's no compromise in the culture. So when there's a certain rule, you don't talk back to your coaches, or no foul language, or no staying out, it's a hard rule, right? There's no flexibility, right? So you're not supposed to be harsh or hard or strict in every single aspect, but there are certain principles or foundational items that you hold to. You can't bend on those. So what I found is that those individuals, those coaches, Coach Munir, Coach Hussein, Coach Muhammad, they didn't bend on certain things. So that was the first thing, right? Setting the culture, setting the expectations. Number two, the work ethic. These guys live together, right? So all the players, they live in one house. They live with the coach, one of the particular coaches, and there's a schedule. They go to school together. They leave school together. They go to the training facility together. Then after the training facility, they go to a separate gym to work out together. So everything is being done together. Everything is being done on a schedule. Those are really like, if you want to use like military terms, those are like your brothers in arms, right? So in our sports culture, you might not even go to the school that you play. You play with certain players if you're AAU or whatnot, but you don't live together. You don't even go to school together. These guys are living together. They're fighting together. They're making up together. They're cooking together. They're eating together. So I would say culture, number one. Number two is just that discipline or like a routine. Number three is caliber, man. You have to bring on high caliber individuals into the program, right? Even when I was brought on, it was for a very particular reason, right? And I was honored. I mean, I was honored that they considered me. But at the same time, this is where now you have to kind of, I hate to say it, like feel yourself. Yeah. You have to know that you have value. And obviously, from a faith-based background, we're supposed to do our work sincerely. So I know if I have some free time and I don't understand something, open up a book, watch a YouTube video, try to learn something, call someone like you, call another coach, try to learn the ins and outs of the game, something that's going to help you make an impact on the team, even if it's at a micro level. So the caliber of the individuals, Coach Munir, former D1 player, played for the Algerian national team. Coach Mohammed, strength and conditioning coach, former MMA fighter, MMA trainer, very good functional coach. Wow. Coach Hussein, former Algerian national team player, someone who's around my age, still moves very gracefully. He can take everyone through the drills. These guys know the fundamentals of the game. They don't skip steps. So I would say number three is the caliber. And then number four is like the whole teamwork concept, right? Everyone has a role. So head coach is head coach, man, right? And it's funny because we kind of live in times where everybody's a little bit more sensitive to authorities or strong leaders. Right. In sports, man, there's no sugarcoating it, right? Like there's a strong leader, man, and if you're not on the same wavelength, you're not going to be there. Sure. The other coaches know that, the players know that, and everyone falls in line. And this is from day one. This is made clear, so there's no ambiguity, right? And but that's also good because I know I have a very particular role. I'm not going to be held accountable for something I'm not supposed to be doing. I'm going to be held accountable for what my particular specialty is. So those are like four things that come to mind right away.
So I think it's great that you talked about like your four key components of that winning culture, or that but sometimes you have individuals who sometimes they're teenagers, right? And sometimes they lose sight of what the goal is. They have other things. How or what did you see to help them redirect them, right? Because that happens, right? You see a player and like, well, I know this better than you do, or you don't understand what I'm going through, and they want to have a bigger role and they don't feel like they have that bigger role in the thing. So how did you see them communicate? Like, what tips were to communicate with individuals to understand their role in the team, how to motivate them to keep on doing their drills and their practices and making sure that they follow the process?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, man. Again, this is a different culture, right? In the sports culture, you can be direct, you can get in somebody's face. There's no personal attacks, you're not striking anybody, but it's a completely different culture where you're able to be upfront and direct about something, right? Yeah. The other thing that helps before I answer the question is these young guys, they respect the coaches because Coach Munir played D1. He played for the Algerian national team. Yeah. Coach Mohammed is someone, you don't want to meet in the alley. Yeah. He's a great guy. He's a very gentle person, but I'm saying that commands respect. Yeah. Like a friend of mine who's a police officer, he says that there's something called, and they teach you this, it's called officer presence. So it's good to be yoked. It's good to look a certain way because there's intimidation or there's, men, we want to, no matter what people say, we want to follow strong men. Yeah. We may not admit it, but you give us a strong man, someone who has values and good character and good morals, we're going to fall in line and we're going to follow them. That doesn't mean everything will be perfect. So now, specifically to answer the question, it's easy, man, because in this case, these guys live together, and they live together with men, right? The coach, the head coach, and then they're with their head coaches every day. So there's that natural like pecking order. You see, it falls into place. A lot of the players are not from America, right? There is a different culture, man. These guys come from. We had a player from Russia. We had a player from Serbia. We had a player from, I believe, Cameroon. We had a player from Ghana. We had a player from, ethnically he was Japanese. We had a player from Saudi Arabia. We had 2 players from Egypt. We had a player from, I want to say the Dominican Republic, or someone who played in the Dominican Republic. Point guard was ethnically Australian, ancestrally Italian, born and raised in Singapore, right? So there's a different culture, and this notion of, I hate to say it, but like people who come from other countries, there's that still respect for the elders. There's that natural, like, they're going to be more disciplined, and you can kind of chew them out without them getting a little bit sensitive. So that makes things easier, right? Nice. But when you see the coaches are now invested to the point, they pick you up in the morning, they drop you off to school, they help you do your homework at night, they take you out to eat, they cook your meals, right? They get you the extra tutoring that you need. They take you to the IV medicine place. They take you for the x-rays. Coaches become either like fathers or uncles or bigger brothers. Right. You start respecting that because you see these guys are giving you time. Now, in the event that someone is really acting up, I haven't seen it personally, but from talking to the coaches, you get kicked out of the program. And it's not a one and done. Yeah. If someone's doing something repeatedly, or if someone does something like of gross misconduct, they don't take it lightly. Right. But that sets the tone. And as an educator, and I know as an educator, in the classroom, you set the tone from day one. You send a strong message, or you set the tone from day one. There's a stronger likelihood that's going to be followed for the rest of the year, right? Whereas if you're soft for the first couple weeks and you let the students kind of run the classroom, it's going to be hard to reel them in. And that's from my experience as well. Right. So it's easy, man. And at the same time, the coaches are like fathers, bigger brothers and uncles. The occasional arm around your shoulder, the pep talk. But they care, man. And the goal that the coaches have for these guys is to learn the game, excel at the game, and play at the highest level. So these guys are not happy with just a state championship. I know Coach wants a national championship, which they won the year before I came there, right? National championship. He wants these guys to play D1, D2. If they don't make it to the NBA, at least, after college, you're playing professionally somewhere in Europe, in Africa, in Asia. So knowing that, and knowing that they're trying to get you to that level, it makes things easier. But at the same time, the flip side is these guys are 16, 17, 18-year-old young men. And there's going to be testosterone leakage, right? Where sometimes you get angry and you get frustrated. But that's the whole manly thing, right? Men can check other men, and men will fall in line when there's a strong leader present. At least that's what I believe. Gotcha.
And then, going into like the X's and O's, right? You have sometimes kids with a lot of talent, right? So how important is, like even for coaches, or even when students or players who are watching this, right? Sometimes like, well, let the talent just flow, right? But you see that in the NBA and stuff. It's not always the talent, but to follow a system, the offense, defense, like what just your thoughts on that, or is it like, hey, sometimes, what was the philosophy there? All right, just here's 1 or 2 plays just to kind of get the motion going and let them free flow, or, what was important?
I mean, there has to be a system in any team. There has to be a mantra. There has to be a way. Do you have a defensive identity? Do you have an offensive identity? Are you guard heavy? Like you're led by your guards. Are you big man heavy? Are you well balanced? No. But then even in terms of like schemes and sets, every coach, and I'm not the head coach. I'm not an assistant. I was the director of basketball operations. I did some other things, but every coach has their tendencies and they have their schemes and sets they like to follow, right? But in terms of the first part of the question, like if you look at, of course we're talking about high school now, but let's look at the NBA. For people who are basketball heads, Kobe Bryant comes into the league. He's a top pick in the draft. He's not the number 1, I believe, but he was in the top 10. Very amazing talent, leaper, athletic. But you see, not until some of the fundamentals are enforced and taught, and the work ethic, gets to be there. And you see Michael Jordan talking about this kid is like bugging him, calling him, texting him. How do you do this? How do you do? Then you see him transcend. You look at a guy like Tim Duncan, San Antonio Spurs, my favorite team. Not the most athletic guy in the world. Why is he considered a top 10 player? Why is he considered the greatest power forward of all time? It's because of the fundamentals. He literally played on one leg for most of his career. In his second year, he injured his knee so bad that for the rest of his NBA career, which is another 17 or 18 years, he had to wear a very heavy brace on his knee. But why was he the big fundamental? Why was he still able to dominate and win 5 championships? Fundamentals, right? So you see Kawhi Leonard, again, when he got to the Spurs, he came in as a small forward who was more like a power forward where he's out there playing defense, he's grabbing rebounds. There's no offensive sets that run through him. There are no plays that are called for him. But now he's working on his game over the first 2 to 3 years. He learns more fundamentally sound. Becomes more fundamentally sound, develops more skills, and now he's able to excel. So, raw talent is good, man. But and I hate to give this example. Like Iverson is one of my favorite players because as someone who's small in stature and someone who's has a guard mindset, you look up to guys who you can resonate with. But you see a guy who was just, I'm not saying he's not a fundamentally sound player, but the guy led with his heart, right? Played through so many injuries, attacked the rim. But you see, after you get banged up so many times, the body can take only so much, right? Steven Jackson recently, right? He posted like a picture of his MRI of his spine. He's got like 2 or 3 completely herniated lumbar discs. One disc is like vertebrae on vertebrae. And he says like the price for the game I love, right? So your body's going to break down at a certain point. But if you still have those fundamentals, look at someone like Steve Kerr. In his last couple of years with the Spurs, he's like 37, 38 years old, out there guarding Kobe Bryant and then guarding Steve Nash when they played the Mavericks. And he's hitting threes. And he's playing solid defense. Why? He's not quick. He's not fast. He's not strong. But fundamentals. Yeah. Defensive slides. Which way do I turn? How do I angle my body? Do I force a middle? So when you know these things and these things are ingrained to you, they become second nature, right? I haven't played basketball seriously in a long time, but there's still, because of muscle memory, something will come back. So I would say skills are great, but nothing beats practice, discipline, and fundamentals.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. No, hey, at the end, the ring, I got to see the ring. I got to hold the ring. This is no joke. That's not no plastic. That's like the real weight. Yeah, I can't wear this in public, man. I'm, especially being back here, brother. I got to be careful. This might get taken, Right. No. It's I know some of the kids at our camp got to see it, so quite impressive. Even myself, when I held it, I was like, okay, this is not like one of those, kind of where the outside looks nice, but it's like really kind of plastics. I was excited to get it, man. It was again, going back to the first point. You have this desire, and you really want to do something, you got to try to figure out a way to make it work, man. Yeah. And again, big shout out to these guys, Spring Creek, the school, Spring Creek Academy, to the team, Springcreek Spartans, to Dominic Romanelli, who kind of helped who facilitated the entire process, to Coach Munir, Coach Hussein, Coach Mohammed. These guys brought me on, made me feel like family, and honestly, like this, bro, like this is something I can lie to my kids about, saying that I was the head coach of this program like 10 years from now, and No, it's all right, but everyone has their parts into it. But I think there's a lot of learning. So even it's not just players. I mean, even as coaches, right? So you're a head coach of another like a community team. Yep. But now at a certain time, you now are like assistant coach for them. Are you helping out the player development or the videotaping, whatever they ask you to do? But so at every level, there's always going to be, you might be in charge, but then you also might be still, learning. Just like a person from college is a superstar, but now comes to the NBA, he's a freshie, right? He's just trying to figure things out, right? A high school might be dominant, goes to college first 2 years, he's like coming off the bench, right? So that's something that's, I think, very important, right? The idea of always humbling and learning. Oh, you have to. I mean, the thing is, you can't get this opportunity if you're not willing to do that. Yeah. Look at some of the guys who are the elite coaches in the NBA right now. I hate to take it back to this all the time. Doc Rivers started off like making video recordings for the Spurs or something, right? He played in the NBA, right. But he was like at the end of the bench for the Spurs, putting together film or something. Right. Look at Ime Udoka, right? He's the coach of the Boston Celtics, yeah. Right? He's an assistant, maybe the last assistant on the Spurs for the first couple years. You got to humble yourself, man. Like it's when you go to a situation with too much confidence or like the sense of authority, it's not always going to work out. Now, if you deserve it, like you're someone like who's known to be at the level, which I was not, that's a different story. But you have to humble yourself, and you have to realize that everything is a learning opportunity, right? Like watching those guys conduct practice, watching how they practice, watching how they hold each other accountable as coaches and men, how they hold
their players accountable. Right. It's a lot to learn, and I would even try to replicate those things in the team that I was coaching, right? But you have to be willing to do that.
Thank you for your time, Coach Imran. I'm going to call you Coach now because of the interview, but and then thank you for the tips and the background of a regional state champs.
Appreciate it. Thank you.